Well, winter has finally arrived, and I'm sure the last thing that are on your minds at this time of year are insects. But have you ever asked yourself the question, where do insects come from? Where do they go during the winter time? And even more importantly, how do they get to my garden? Well, to answer some of those questions today, we have a guest with us, Dr. Ken Pinkston, who is an extension entomologist here with our Oklahoma State University Cooperative Extension Service. Welcome to
Thank you, sir.
Oklahoma Gardening.
Great to be here.
You know, we've really promoted our green manure crops, or our cover crops, and they're doing quite well. But one of the things that we're also doing, in addition to providing those nutrients and those kinds of things back to the soil, we're kind of providing a little harbor for our insects. Why don't we go over here and I'll squat down here and ask you a few questions. We're actually going to cause insects to come and visit us probably this winter, aren't we, with our green manure crop?
Well, Steve, it's really a very, very complicated situation with the variety of insects we have that a homeowner can encounter in a garden setting. And I use that all inclusive, from their vegetable garden to their ornamental planting, their shade trees, their bedding plants, those sorts of things. Some of those culprits, as most of us are all aware, will feed kind of jointly. There are a number of them that are rather indiscriminate, have appetites for, say, the roots of whatever plant may be growing there, whatever foliage might be there. There are others that are quite selective.
Right, so they may have a place to harbor here, but is there really anything we should worry about, or what should we do maybe to help prevent?
In terms of a cover crop, what I would normally encourage people to think of is we've tilled their soil in the fall going in, and we planted a cover crop, and we'll be tilling for a spring planting. Mm-hmm. And at that time, while we're tilling, to carefully search for some of the soil insects that may well have overwintered in that area, and under the cover crop in the soil area, normally at the freeze zone or below it. Mm-hmm. And at that time they're tilling, if they're seeing indications of finding white grubs, wire worms, some of the maggots, something of that nature that might be in that soil, to definitely consider an at-plant or pre-plant application of an insecticide. Okay. There are a number of those on the market for potential use for that purpose.
But they really shouldn't do that unless I see a high number of population of the insects.
Right. It's not just as a preventative thing. I would not encourage it. Judicious use of any pesticide, obviously, but if you have them there, they will not go away. And your recently planted vegetables then in the spring will provide ideal food sources for those critters.
But as we come in and say a few weeks until our cover crop under, we're actually doing another good thing then by maybe bringing the insects to the surface. Would that?
Oh, certainly. And for those that don't use cover crops or a green manure crop, it's an excellent idea to get the plant residue off of that soil. Get those type harborages out of there. Either compost them or destroy them, get them out of the area. Secondarily, tilling, and a deep tillage is possible considering soil conditions or nutrient problems they may have in their garden area, but as deep as possible, and waiting as late as possible. I know a lot of us like to do that on a nice, maybe warm October day or something, but the later you can wait, the more likelihood you are that some of the pests will have gone into their pupal stage, those that will be overwintering in that manner, and those that may be in the larval stages, knowing that they're deep enough in the soil areas that they think they'll make it through the winter. They've already taken up harborage there, so that we expose those to the winter temperature.
Okay. Well, so really our benefits in planting the cover crop still outweigh any
certainly. They
problems of attracting insects, and then
just
ways of
being observant when we have these sorts of things. Highly unlikely during most winter months with most of our cover crops that we'll have anything actually feed on the cover crop itself, or enough activity that it will in itself draw insects to the garden area. However, as we go into spring, depending on how late we wait to till that, it may be some of the greenest plant material in there to attract some of the early arriving pests.
For them to start feeding on that. Well, you know, Ken, a common question that we get from viewers and a lot of the different home gardeners, if they're the only gardener in their area and there's not any other gardens around, how are the insects finding their particular garden?
Steve, I get the same question. Why do they target me? What did I do? You know, what was my sin that brought on this plague that hit my garden? And Unfortunately, it's not, as I said with overwintering, it's not a real simplistic answer. In fact, the things do migrate for considerable distances. It's not necessarily that you're the only one in your block that has a garden and no one else does. You have to consider, as I said earlier, a number of people do have other plant materials that some of these things cross-feed on. They'll go to vegetables as easily as they'll go to some ornamental plants. But that's not necessarily true of a lot of our real common things like squash bug. It feeds basically on running crops and vining crops.
So alternate crops, maybe weeds even around their landscape or garden that could...
Those sort of things are ideal for the attraction of the insects if they're not doing a good job of cultivating or weed control in the area. The fact that they do annually have that food source for those insects that like those garden vegetables as well as they do. Secondarily, the fact that, as I said, they migrate in considerable distance.
And that may be flying in or the
wind blowing, those sorts of things. And
what's a common distance that one might come from?
It varies greatly. For example, we know we have corn earworms migrate from South Texas over the period of the summer, and that particular pest, the corn earworm, also hits tomatoes as the tomato fruit worm. Cotton producers know it as the cotton bollworm, and our garden knows it. If we try to grow corn, it loves sweet corn. So that's one that aphids also blow in.
Okay.
It's a misconception here a lot of times that aphids almost, they think they're spontaneous in that they just arrive from nowhere. And in actuality, some species of aphids may overwinter as eggs, others as adults on opposite or different types of food sources or wind blown in.
Well, Ken, let's we've found some insects with our green manure crop, but we've also got our composted areas. Let's go see if we can't find some of these insects now that we're
That'll give us a good idea of where they're located.
Well, Ken, we're over here on the north side of our fruit orchard, and we've put in a new planting of hollies that we want to try to block some of our area where we put some of our extra refuse. And the hollies were donated by our good friends at Monrovia Nursery, but again, we're trying to put up a screen, which we've talked about before, to block some of this area where we can hide some of our trash and refuse and that kind of thing. So I bet this would be a good place for us to find some insects. We've got a shovel over here. Let's see what we can find.
Right. Usually, this is an ideal harborage for insects that are overwintering, trying to get out of what will be cold weather.
All right. Well, we've got in here some grass clippings and pulled up some of our annuals and different things, and we know there's a lot of good insects because the armadillos have been digging in here too. Let's see what we can find here. Okay, it looks like we got so really insects overwintering in the soil, that's one of the main ways that they do it.
Very much so. And I found a couple of critters right here off the bat. I might let you hold them.
Okay.
We've got a container there. You can put them in there.
All right.
Well, let me see what else we can find here real quick. Yeah, here's find a little bit of the same.
Okay, what do we
critters
have here? The big ones. What do we have with
the large larvae right here are white grubs. They happen to be a common name applied to what a lot of people refer to adults as May beetles or June beetles.
Okay.
They're root feeders primarily. These two large ones happen to be the immature forms and will be the overwintering forms in this case, we're finding here in the soil, of the green June beetle, the one that's often attracted to overripe fruit, that sort of thing. Large green beetle, a lot of people in the state of Oklahoma get it mixed up with the Japanese beetle, which we don't have in the state. But this is the little critter. A lot of times when you play with them or put them in your hand, they lay on their back and crawl on their back.
What about the smaller
Smaller one's a close cousin. It is the true June beetle or May beetle.
Okay.
And this is the more common white grub that comes up in the spring and summer months, feeds on roots of turf grasses as well as vegetable crops, some ornamentals. The little brown critter you've covered right here, that's a pupal case. The resting stage, transformation stage, if you will, of a critter that will be a moth in its adult state. They're extremely difficult to identify from their pupal cases. However, very good likelihood that this is either a cutworm, one of the cutworm species, or one of the armyworms.
So here we've got the larval stage and the pupa stage of insects overwintering. What about egg masses? Is there a way that insects can overwinter there?
Certain insects will overwinter in the egg stage, Steve. Aphids, for example, we get cases there of two different methods of overwintering, either as eggs in some cases, or as adults that may be off on alternate host or hiding in harborages of this nature and coming out in the spring and starting their reproductive cycles. Also, there are caterpillars, like the eastern tent caterpillar that people may be familiar with on wild or sand plums, what I call, along hedgerows, along roadsides. They overwinter by affixing egg masses very tightly, shiny, glistening egg masses to twigs and stems of some of the fruit trees.
So the pupa larvae and egg masses also overwintering as adults, and we found earlier here at Oklahoma Gardening some of the box elder
Bugs, squash bug are both two Colorado potato beetle. Good examples of insects that overwinter in the adult stage. Obviously, they're going to try to find debris of this nature or get down in the soil for protection. There's a misconception a lot of times that the extremely hard winters will kill all of these critters off. In actuality, if they get a good snow cover, it very much insulates them down in these areas, and they'll make it through just fine. The number one culprit, or decreasing insect populations, will due to climate in Oklahoma, becomes our erratic springs, where we have these extremely warm periods pop up every once in a while in late February or March, and followed with a few days of kind of nice weather, and boom, it crashes in with a heavy cold front, and that cyclic condition
helps
reduces populations more than normally would just a normal winter.
So, Ken, in review, we know now where some insects hide and overwinter, where they come from. What would be the bottom line as far as really trying to reduce insect populations as far as going into this time of year?
Quick review: the removal of the crop residue in the fall, get it off just as quickly as possible, or even the summer crops, get them out of there. The tillage, checking in the spring then for indications that you have larvae or these pupal stages in that soil. If they are there in some abundance, you can find them quite readily. You may want to consider a pre-treatment prior to your planting, and then obviously observation during the growing season, and just don't put the crops on a spray program without a need.
And then of course during the growing season, rotation of crops and monitoring of the pest and those kind of things.
Those type of things that we normally refer to as integrated pest management practices are the key to judicious use of pesticides, good garden, and limiting damage.
Well, Ken, I want to thank you again for being on Oklahoma Gardening. You've really answered a lot of our questions, and hope you'll join us again soon.
Sure will.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.